Welcome to your 2nd through 5th grade teacher logic of English training. We're going to be going through the different pieces of our essentials curriculum and kind of talking about how that's going to look at Alitaire this year. So first, Logic of English Essentials. The primary focus of this is mastering how English spelling works. For our 2nd and 3rd graders, they're going to be studying this at level A as they move through the curriculum, which means that you will be doing the material that's in blue. Anytime that there's a colored box, if it's blue, that's for you 2nd and 3rd graders, grade teachers. And for 4th and 5th graders, they're going to do the same material, but they will be covering it at the level B. Which is in green. So anytime there's a colored box, you're looking for the green color, and that's the material that you're going to cover in class. As we work through essentials, you're going to be mastering the 75 basic phonograms with your students. We're going to also have students mastering the 31 spelling rules. They're going to learn how the parts of a word shape meaning and spelling, and learn how words work within sentences. For 2nd and 3rd graders, we're also going to be utilizing the Essentials Reader. So you should have that book as well as a teacher's guide and a workbook that comes along with it. This is phonics controlled reading practice. So it corresponds to the phonograms and spelling rules that have been taught in Logic of English that they've just learned. The goal is to practice decoding, to build fluency and comprehension skills. This is not a complete literacy program, so the students will still be expected to be reading other things outside of this. It will start on day 2 with each new unit. And the units that we're studying in the Essentials Reader are always going to be one unit behind what we're doing in the Logic of English curriculum. So they should work on certain skills. Let's say you're on Unit 16 for 3rd graders. You're going to actually be doing Unit 15 in your Essentials Reader. So they will be reading with skills that they should have mastered over the course of Unit 15. And when you move on to Unit 17, they'll be doing Unit 16 in their Essentials Reader. Each story will be read 4 times over the course of 2 weeks, and there will be accompanying activities that are specified in the plans. As we're talking about reading, Logic of English really has a focus on the 5 strands of reading. These are the critical thinking skills for language learning. And like growing a tree, learning to read is a very complex process. So each of these 5 skills are interrelated and they support the growth of one another. So the first one is phonemic awareness, which is just understanding that words are comprised of individual sounds. Then we move on to systematic phonics, which is an accurate written code which translates sounds into visual images. So if you understand that there is a sound B, then when you study systematic phonics, you understand that, oh, there's a written letter. The letter B corresponds with the sound B. We add on to that fluency, which is the mastery of the skills of phonemic awareness and systematic phonics to the point of automaticity. So we want it to become automatic, that when they hear B, they think B, and it's just automatic. They're not having to put thought into that. Next, we have vocabulary development, which is learning the meaning of new words and morphemes and developing tools to discover the meaning of an unknown word. And finally, reading comprehension skills, which are strategies that a reader may employ to better understand a text. Every other subject is really dependent on a student being able to read well. So when we teach these strands in this order and continue to develop them, then we're building a strong foundation for them. The quality and size of the foundation determines what we can build upon it. So if we have a smaller foundation, maybe we can build a house. But if we have a bigger foundation, maybe we can build a skyscraper. So we want students to have a depth of learning in these foundational skills to prepare them for any future building. And that's why we're going to continue to teach these phonics skills all the way through 5th grade. We're going to watch a video now of Denise Ide. She is the author of the Logic of English curriculum.
Now, I want you to watch this little video of a seed growing, and I want you to tell me, what do you notice? The roots grow first. But then, what else is growing? The stem. But do the roots stop? No. And that is something really key for us to understand about reading instruction. We do need to lay some root skills first, but we don't stop just because the stem starts growing. We keep fostering the growth of those roots because they need to keep growing in depth so that the tree can grow up large and strong.
As we're thinking about how this is going to look at A La Terre, I'm going to go through kind of just a typical week, first for second and third graders, and then for fourth and fifth graders. So second and third graders, when you're starting a new unit, which each unit will be covered over 2 weeks. Week 1 of that unit will start on day 1, which is a school day. And you're going to cover the phonograms and the spelling rules for that unit on that day. You should have approximately an hour, maybe even a little bit more, during your class time to do that. These are important and sometimes in-depth lessons, so we really want to carve out time for that. You will not have a reading assignment on day 1 because we really want to focus on these phonograms and spelling rules on that day. The students will go home on day 2 and they'll review what they learned with you and do their spelling journal assignment. And then on day 3, we cover spelling analysis. You will always do list A for your unit. And then you will have a reading assignment, a story from the unit that's before whatever unit you're covering that you will have time for during class. You might be reading that as a whole group. You can try and do small groups, however you want to cover that. But you're going to really try and discuss comprehension, help the kids with decoding and fluency and whatever they need. On day 4, the students will go home. They'll do their review and some grammar and practice writing their words on day 5. The grammar assignments for second and third grades, those are going to be split between home and school. So you'll really have to pay close attention to which portions are assigned to you on which day. Then when we get to week 2, day 1 is going to be a grammar and vocabulary day. So we do kind of skip around there so that we can cover the vocab lessons at school. So again, you'll have a grammar portion that you're going to watch carefully which portion is yours. Then you'll do the vocabulary assignment. Remember, you're only doing level A, so that will be in a blue box that you're looking for. And then I usually put in their review as time permits because our grammar or our vocabulary lessons really vary in length. Sometimes they're quite lengthy and sometimes they're pretty short. So just always be prepared with something that you can do if you have some extra time at the end. That could be phonograms. It could be working with a partner. Maybe you're going to have the kids use their spelling list words to write sentences together with a friend. You could play phonogram games or other games that work on literacy skills. You could, there again won't be reading assignments on day 1, but if you have extra time, you could pull some reading assignments or do something that goes along with the story that you're reading. Day 2, they'll go home and do those assignments. When they come back on day 3, you will have a dictation assignment. Again, it will be level A. And then that's kind of our review day. At that point, we've gone through the entire unit. So a lot of times we'll review the 2.15 is like just reviewing the grammar rules that we've learned. And then we have games and activities to practice your concepts from that unit. So a lot of our teachers in Omaha like to play a game called Sparkle, which is a spelling game. You could do a spelling relay. You could have the kids build their words with tiles or with wiki sticks. Any type of fun activities like that where they're enjoying themselves but also getting an educational review. And then on day 4, they're going to go home and do the assessment with their parents. And we are going to ask parents to share those results with the teacher. So you need to come up with a way that you want parents to do that. Do you want them to email you? Are you going to make a simple Google form that just, says something like, how did your child do with phonograms? How did your child do with dictation? And then the parent is going to take and analyze that assessment and plan how they're going to work toward mastery on day 5. For 4th and 5th grade teachers, your week is going to look similar, but you will not be doing the grammar assignments because you have Lighthouse Grammar. So day 1, you're going to introduce the phonograms and spelling rules, just like 2nd and 3rd grade. However, if there is a third part to that part 1 of a unit, we're moving that to the parents assignment on day 2. And we're doing that just because you guys are doing IEW. You have a little more heavy academic schedule already. So just in terms of making time, you will not have a full hour for Logic of English on day 1. You'll probably have more like 30 to 35 minutes. So just to make that more achievable, we're moving anytime there's a 0.3, that's moved to the parents. On day 3, you will also do spelling analysis. This will be list B, so you're looking for that green list. The videos are available to practice, and I highly encourage you to use those just to make sure that you're doing the finger spelling correctly and getting the pattern of how you present the words to kids correct. They will practice with the words. They're going to write the plural and past tense forms of the words, do word work and dictation at home. Then week 2, again, you're going to have a vocabulary lesson. You're doing level B, so the green portion. And just like for 2nd and 3rd grade, the length of these varies a lot from unit to unit. So you just want to always have something in the back of your mind of what am I going to do if I have extra time? What am I going to review? Is it phonograms that we need to work on? Is there some sort of partner work or a fun game that we can do that is educational, but the kids are having fun? Then looking at day 3, this is also going to be your review day. So you'll have a dictation that you'll do with your students. We'll cover that in just a second. And then you can pick some games and activities to practice the concepts that were covered in that unit. So again, you could look for Sparkle. You can look that up online, how to play that, or do a spelling relay, building words, activities like that. And then the kids will go home and do the assessment just like with 2nd and 3rd grade, and you'll need to let parents know how you want them to communicate those results to you. So thinking about dictation is a more challenging way to practice our spelling words, and it's a stepping stone to independent writing. So when students recall a phrase and they repeat it to themselves and they write it, they're actually using the same skills that they would use to write their own sentence. They're holding an idea in their minds and they're writing it down, except here they don't have to compose an original idea. So looking at the process of this, when it's time for dictation, the teacher's going to read the phrase or the sentence that the students are expected to write, and the students are going to repeat it aloud. Sometimes they don't repeat it correctly because they weren't listening. So that's kind of why we do that. We want to make sure that they actually have it in their mind correctly. So you may have to read it again and have them repeat it again. Once they have it, they're going to write it in their notebook. Each student should have a spiral notebook that's on their school supply list. So they'll write it down, and then we're going to correct it together. So the students are going to read it back to you, and they can give you hints, kind of similar to spelling analysis. You're going to write on the board what they say. And then they're going to compare what they see on the board to what they wrote in their notebook and correct any errors. And then you guys can have a discussion about any questions they might have about the spelling, or if anything was hard about that. So for instance, if we were writing the sentence, she buys eggs, milk, and bread. You would say that, and then the students would have to repeat that back. She buys eggs, milk, and bread. And they're going to write it in their notebook. When they're done, you're going to say, okay, what did you write? And they're going to read back to you. She buys eggs, milk, and bread. And you'll write that on the board and ask them, does what you wrote look just like mine? And remember, you're looking for all of the things with this, for capital letters where there should be capital letters, for punctuation, commas, all of those things should be present and correct. As they're doing this, you can provide support for any kids who might be struggling. So if someone's like, oh, bread, how do I spell that? Which phonogram do I use for the sound in bread? You might cue them with a finger spelling, or you could tell them, oh, bread uses the phonogram E-A, and just giving them a cue to help them. Or it's fine also to just let them make an attempt, and if they do it incorrectly, you can correct it afterwards. And then actually attempting to remember the spelling of a word while writing the dictation phrases is a really valuable spelling practice. Also, just a quick blurb about spelling analysis. This is often what most teachers are most intimidated by. So I just really encourage you to practice this process with the finger spelling before you teach it. All of the videos are online, either on YouTube or on the Essentials Online, which we have access to. And also, kind of a bonus, if you have a student that's sick on a day that you do spelling analysis, you can just send the YouTube link to the parents so that they can do that at home if they were absent. All right, as you are preparing, I just encourage you to ask 2 questions to kind of guide you in your preparations. So number 1, how can I make this lesson work in my classroom? And number 2, how can I keep my students actively engaged in the lesson? So when we're thinking about how to make the lesson work in your classroom, you're really analyzing what's the learning goal and do I need to use a different approach? Logic of English a lot of times uses a lot of games, and some of them when you read them you might be like, the level of chaos that I anticipate this causing is just more than I want to deal with in my classroom. Or maybe you have kids that can't handle that much fun. So I encourage you not to skip over that activity, but instead to modify it or change it to be something that can work for you. What is the goal? Is the goal to practice certain phonograms? Is there a rule you can change in the game or a different activity that would better fit your class that still covers that same concept? We want them to keep learning, but maybe just change the approach. Another area where you might need to do this is when your lessons call for the phonogram game tiles. These are a great tool, but they're not necessarily great in the classroom because you probably only have one set, but you have multiple students. So I found that oftentimes it'll work really well to just have kids get out crayons or colored pencils or markers that are the correct color, like blue and red and green, the ones that you see on the game tiles. And instead of having them build the word with the tiles, they're just going to write it, but using the correct colors, the blue for the consonants and the red for the vowels. So this is kind of a sample of one of the lessons that I taught in 2nd grade where we were analyzing vowel sounds and categorizing it. So I gave students a paper that looks like this, and then I just made a simple slideshow where I had it follow the script, and the words would kind of fly in as we talked about them, and the students would just copy what they see on the screen and put those words in the correct column using their colors. And it actually was one of our most fun lessons of the year. We all just had a really good time, and the kids were very entertained with their colors, but also very tuned in to what we were learning about vowels. So this is just to get your wheels turning about different ideas of how you can engage your kids without using the actual physical tiles. All right, and then how can I keep my students actively engaged in the lesson? Sometimes the lessons might seem a little dry or a little lengthy. So I find that making it kinesthetic, if you're giving them something to do, that oftentimes will help their brain stay engaged in the material. So whiteboards are a super easy way to do this, just having them writing along with you. You can easily see if they're not engaged. And their brains are a lot more likely to be thinking if they have to also be writing or doing some sort of action. You could have them, if you're practicing phonograms or something, give them actions to do, or they can stand on one foot or do jumping jacks as they do it. Another fun thing is to use silly voices. So when we're doing that repetition of like repeating spelling rules, it's more fun to talk like a robot or talk like a fish. They will giggle and laugh and be so much more engaged if they get to make silly voices. And then finally, I'm not above bribery. Sometimes you just have to dangle a carrot in front of the kids and think, what's going to motivate my students? What can I give them at the end of this? If we stay focused and finish this lesson, we can do a Go Noodle, or you can have 5 minutes to walk around the room and talk with your friends. So just think about what's going to motivate them to push through when it gets tough. All right, some additional ideas for you. We do have a week 0 coming up, which is kind of our first day of school, but the lesson plans will not have started at that point. So we'll be going through a typical day, but you will need to come up with the activities that you do. So you'll teach them procedures, but it's also good to have some activities. So I would recommend that you review the phonograms. So for 2nd and 4th graders, for 2nd grade, I guess you'd review A through Z. For 3rd graders, you can look in your scope and sequence and see which phonograms they should have studied already. And for 4th and 5th, we're kind of assuming that they've been through these books before, so you could really review all 75 if you wanted. You could practice the process of spelling analysis, just do some sample words and just kind of remind them how that process works. Game ideas from the Logic of English. Check out the review sections. There's lots of games that you can find in there that are fun to use. I'm attaching to this some Science of Reading activities. These are fun activities that are tested. They're going to line up with Logic of English ideals. You can use these throughout the year for early finishers, or for those times when we're talking about when you need to have review activities ready. A lot of these activities are just print and go, so you can just set them up one time quite easily and have them ready for your students to use. And a lot of times that can be like a fun partner activity that you can utilize in your classroom. And then we also have a lot of free resources on the Logic of English website, so feel free to check those out if you find those helpful. And then this is just a quick run through of those supplemental reading materials that are Science of Reading aligned that you'll see on your handout. But there are QR codes if you want to find the links to these and check them out. The different games, grouped by literacy, print and go, you can laminate them. There's just a lot of different options and stuff for every different level. You can reach out to Emily Peters. She's one of our teachers at the Love Campus in Elkhorn. If you have any questions or if you'd like more suggestions about Science of Reading activities, she is very passionate about making learning fun, and she would love to work with you on that. All right, thank you so much for your time and attention. I will see you guys at the training. If you have any questions, you can email me at sarah@alitair.org, or we'll talk at training. Thank you.